This reading is from the book of Swamiji, Rays of the One Light. If a devotee seeks God sincerely, he will certainly find himself uplifted in the spirit occasionally. How easy it is, then, to imagine that this blessed state will remain with him forever. For divine joy is remembered by the soul in eternity. Spiritual experiences, when they come, seem eternally right and natural to us, for the soul came from God. Inner blessings are soon lost, however, with the devotee's return from meditation to ego consciousness. We must therefore strive always to deepen our attunement with them by daily meditation and by constantly practicing the presence of God. And this passage is from the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. One who beholds my presence everywhere and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses loving sight of me, nor I of him, through all eternity. That yogi finds security in me, who, though his days be rushed and action-filled, is anchored inwardly at rest in me, and worships me in every living form. That one, Arjuna, is the best of men, and truest he of yogis, whose heart feels the joys of all, their pains, their searing griefs, with equal care, as though they were his own. How many people bemoan God's absence from their lives, his seeming indifference to them during their misfortunes, his apparently determined silence when they pray to him. Sri Krishna reveals here the secret for winning a divine response. Practice God's presence. Call to him, not merely during hours of urgent need when you've exhausted your own resources. Share your every thought with him, your lightest whims, your joys, your disappointments. People normally think, I am acting, I am enjoying. Or, when things go badly, I am disappointed. The devotee should think rather, Lord, we are acting together. Every joy, every disappointment that I feel is ours, not mine alone. Again, people normally think of God in the third person. Thus, if they want to include him in their actions, they will think, he is acting with me. The devotee must school himself rather to think you, not he. He must talk to God as his dearest friend. He may even scold God sometimes, as he might, with love, his own nearest and dearest. He must strive to see in everything, that in everyone, the Lord's hidden presence, for all things in relation to infinity. See all things in relation to infinity. Think of God as playing hide and seek with him, so to speak, within every tree, every stone, every human being. He should view every tree, stone, and human being as part of that infinite reality, out of which all things have come, and in which the universe resides. It is with this consciousness that one should love his neighbor, not merely for his human qualities, but for the divine reality residing within him. One should love his neighbor for the fact that, in the greatness of God, he and his neighbor are one. By practicing God's presence in this way, one soon finds that conscious presence with him everywhere he goes, guiding him, protecting him, and feeling him with bliss ineffable. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. And we chant the 3 ohms together at the end of these readings. We've started that practice, which we generally do. And it sounds like this. Om, Om, Om.
Practicing the presence of God is one of my favorite topics. it's been talked about, as we read in the Bhagavad Gita so beautifully. The Gita is so clear. It tells every path, every step that the devotee must take on the path, and explains it so clearly. And when we read it, it's just like, yes, this is where I'm at. Yes, this is exactly how I feel. So there's so much comfort in reading the Gita. I just love to read it. And it's also in the Christian tradition as well. I was going to mention a very famous Christian saint, modern. He's not a Matthew, Mark, or Luke, or John, or anybody like that. His name was his name is Frank Laubach, and he was a minister who went to a city and was starting a church, but he was all alone, and he found himself feeling lonely. And he was far away from family, and he didn't have friends. And he had been, reading scripture and wanting to develop more of a connection to God on a moment-by-moment basis. So he just decided on his own, I'm going to start talking to God constantly. And so he tried and found 30 seconds he was able to do it. Try it yourself sometime. See how long, when you are wanting to talk to God, how long you're able to carry on that conversation without, I better go pick up some lentils, or the rice is almost out, or time for more ghee, whatever it is. But it's very difficult to keep the mind one-pointed on God. So he practiced. He started doing 30 seconds, then he did a whole minute, then he did 5 minutes, and he wrote a journal. He kept a diary, and in the diary you can read it. It's in a book called Letters of a Modern Mystic. And so in that book he keeps this diary about how he tried to keep that going. He got to the point where he was in constant conversation with God. And those who knew him felt that, when he was just silent, they knew that conversation was going on inside. And then when he would lead a prayer, it would be as though whatever conversation was going on, he just opened his mouth and continued in that conversation. So it was non-stop. And we got to view Swami Kriyananda in this way also. He maybe didn't practice it in the same way, but as one of the things, Dharmaraj and I were speakers this past weekend in Pune. One of the things I spoke about was how 22 or so years ago, when I joined the path, Swamiji would talk very often about, we want to think of God as you. We want to have God come into our decisions that we make. So, in the morning we think, so, Master, what am I going to do today? What shall we do together? What shall we eat? What shall we shop for? What do you think about this? Guide me. With just a constant prayer, guide me. And Swamiji would talk about how he would do it. He would say, everything I do, there's not one thing I do that I don't pass by my guru. Not one thing. But at the end of his life, he said, there's not one thought, there's not one feeling, there's not one action that I don't feel is Master. So he went from inviting Master in, and in that relationship it's more an I and a thou relationship. But then he merged. And when he merged, he then became that even more of a pure channel, in that he said he didn't know where he ended and Yogananda began. we can have this. We can have this in our life. You know, the practice, devotional practices like practicing the presence of God, it requires that we develop a very personal relationship with God. And one of the things Swamiji suggested was developing a relationship with God as the Divine Mother. Thinking of God as the Divine Mother. Now, of course, we have Durga and Parvati, and we think of God as the Divine Mother through them. But even more personal than that, that if she is just our mother, you know, just she's our mother. And Swamiji suggested Divine Mother because when we think of God in the masculine form, we think of more Saturn, you know, the loving disciplinarian that might say, you didn't meditate today, or, you know, let's go, come on, let's do the right thing, and, you know, things like that, that keep us in line, and things that fathers do for us. But the mother is always there. No matter what we do, she always loves us. Father does too, but mother hugs and she's always there. So we can think of God in this way. It's a very forgiving way of having a relationship with God. Forgiving meaning when we make mistakes, we say, God, look what I did. You know, you work through me. This is your fault. Offer it up. You know, all of these things. Yoganandaji talked about this all the time. He would scold Divine Mother, why do you make people suffer? Don't make people suffer. You know, he had this conversation, and it wasn't just a conversation, one way. It was two ways. Meditation is when we listen to the answer. Prayer is when we are speaking to the divine. And we have that on this path. Not only that, the techniques that we teach, the Hong Sa technique, can lead to breathlessness. It can lead us to a point of so much stillness, and the mind becomes so still, the heart becomes so still, that we can get to that point of breathlessness. We teach another technique called the Om technique. That Om technique allows us to hear the vibration of God. Now, that is an absolutely real experience. When we hear that vibration and when we feel it, that vibration can take over the whole body. You can feel, even though when we practice it, we practice listening to the different sounds in the chakras, things like that, or the general sound of Om. But also, when you're listening to that, you'll suddenly feel your whole body enveloped in the Om vibration. It's actually quite a pleasurable experience. It's just very all-encompassing. And you can even have it happen, you know, throughout your day. There was a time when I had an experience of this when I was going through a very difficult time. And the Om came before the difficult time happened and carried me through the difficult time, and then kind of ended after that. Although I'm sure if I would have really worked at it more, I could have kept it up even more. But it came as the comforter. And actually, you know, we teach both Bible and the Bhagavad Gita here. In India, we tend to emphasize the Gita, but in America, it's pretty balanced. But one of the things that Christ said was that Om was called the comforter in the Bible. And so Om is the presence of God. Om is the movement of the atoms in the ether that causes us to become bodies, solid matter, because the atoms are moving fast enough, and also allows us to move around and be active in life. The Om is the original part of creation that first there's complete and absolute silence, then God created a wave. God created vibration. That vibration then manifested into thicker and thicker form until we became. And so it's the origin of God. So when we hear the Om in the right ear, when we feel Om in the body, we are touching God. That is a true experience of God. And we teach that here. And it is possible for every single person in this room to experience that. It's not just a, wow, I was meditating and I had a vision of Shiva, and, just a gift that can come periodically. It's an experience you can live with. That is another practice of the presence of God. And so then we also teach Kriya. Kriya also helps us get in touch with that vibration. It's another form of the vibration that comes in. And so all of these techniques that we teach, their whole purpose is to help us practice the presence of God. But in between meditation, we want to also do this. One of the things that Swamiji suggests is after meditating that it can be kind of difficult transitioning into daily life after meditating, because sometimes we just have to jump in to activity right after a meditation. But when we jump directly into activity, it can be discombobulating. It can be, oh, what's going on? It kind of can knock you out of that meditative experience that you were having. The whole goal of meditation, aside from that piece during meditation, if we have it, we don't always have it during meditation, but I bet every single person in this room can agree that after meditating, whether it was peaceful or not, that the rest of the day goes better than if there's no meditation. So we know meditation isn't just about what's happening in that 45 minutes or an hour or two or whatever it is. It's a whole way of life. And that practice of meditation is just part of meditation. It's just part of practicing the presence of God. So one of the things Swamiji said is when we come out of our meditation, one of the things you can do if you go for a morning walk, do it in silence. Even if you go with your wife or husband or walk in silence together. And while you're walking, he suggested a few things, some breathing exercises. He suggested walking, breathing through your nose to the count of 4 while you're walking. Hold for the count of 4, and then release through the count of 4. And that just kind of gets you into a more meditative state as you're walking. He called it a walking meditation. The other thing we really need to do, this developing of our relationship with the Divine Mother, or the Divine as personal, is test that relation out. Every relationship requires trust of some sort. And so if we have felt we've been wronged in life, then sometimes the trust is not quite there with God even. Or if we have questions, why would people suffer from starvation if God really cared? Or why would people suffer at all if God cares? These questions come into people's minds. We need to resolve that inside of ourselves so that if we're feeling abandoned by God in any way, we have to look and see, maybe I'm the one who's turned away. Maybe I've got a resentment in my heart that has made me kind of a little distant from God. Maybe I've done a few things I don't feel good about, and so I'm afraid of opening to God, and because I wasn't very good, I think. But God's the one that can cleanse us. God's the one that can say, okay, maybe Heavenly Father comes in and says, okay, now we will behave better, and we know how to behave, and we will, practice the yamas and the niyamas, and we can do these things. And then the Divine Mother says, oh, who cares? It's fine. You'll be fine. Everything's okay. Just try again. Try a little harder. If we talk to ourselves this way, life is a lot nicer. It's very easy on the spiritual path to become pretzels in our desire to practice the teachings perfectly. We can tie ourselves up in little knots because, oh my God, I didn't do that right. And I want so badly to have God. And so some tension can build up. And the whole purpose of yoga and meditation is to not have that tension. So we have to find out to work with ourselves. We have to work with our minds. We have to work with our own inner psychology. The part of us that has beliefs about how the spiritual path should be. And we need to let go of some of those maybe old beliefs. We all have been on the spiritual path so many lifetimes before. Yoganandaji said, if you want Kriya Yoga, if you want God, you have, how many varies is it? 4? You have very, 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 very good karma. That means we have done the spiritual path over and over and over again. We have been monks, we have been nuns, we have done it all. And we are in this life with the circumstances we have right this moment in order to get free. So if we're in a family situation and we think, why can't I be a monk or a nun? Because this is the karma we have that we need to work through in this life. If we were monks and nuns before, why weren't we free in that lifetime? We often idealize that lifestyle, which we have at Ananda. I mean, we have renunciation, we have brahmacharya, we have brahmacharini and everything. But sometimes people in families with family responsibilities say, but life would be so much easier with less of these responsibilities, and I just want to, have some quiet so I can just meditate, and, these thoughts occur. But Lahiri Mahashaya was married. He had a daughter only, right? Just 2 sons. Oh, Sri Yukteswar had a daughter. So, Lahiri Mahashaya was married. Sri Yukteswar was married. They showed that householders can do it. And so, we've had these multiple lives. We've tried it as renunciates before. We have tried it before. We've, I'm sure, been in the Himalayas before and had that cave. The thing is, even if you meditated in a cave for a lifetime, if you had karma that you needed to work through, that karma will find you no matter where you are. And so we think, but I'm a monk, I'm in a cave, I'm just meditating. Isn't this how I'm going to be free? And then we died in that lifetime and came back as we are. And we're like, oh, okay, I guess just meditating wasn't the only thing I needed to do. There was more karma that I had to work through. And so we can know that the life circumstances we have right now are the gift from God to set us free. And that's also part of practicing the presence of God, is acceptance. That, yes, this too has been given to me. This too has been given to me. Yes, yes, yes. As opposed to, no, not that. No, not that again. No. These are things we all feel. So try and offer up those. When we feel the no, do it with Divine Mother. There was a time, when we were growing up with Swamiji in America, the tradition with the Guru is different. Americans are a little messed up when we talk about the Guru, because they're, because of the Christian tradition or whatever, and Christ is out of the body, and then they let priests do everything and things like that. There's a little disconnect between our own relationship with God. So, I grew up with that myself. Then we come to a path where there's a guru. And then there's all these stories in the news about cults and gurus that have come over from India and taken advantage of women and, all those types of things. And so the Americans, who are very analytical, start, going into fear. Because when we're just analytical and we're just our little heads thinking, we're going to be in fear. Without the heart, it's just going to be fear. And so then they're thinking and just not used to this idea. Whereas you come to India, it's like even the beginning classes we teach in India are more advanced, because everybody has this understanding of the Guru. So when we were growing up with Swamiji, we didn't touch his feet. We didn't know to do that. No one talks about that. But when we came to India and we saw everyone touching his feet, I thought, I want to do that. But for the past 18 years, I have not been touching Swamiji's feet. And so, because the tradition wasn't there. And then we saw Swamiji came to India, people were like, they had to have crowd control. Whereas in America, he would get up and say, goodbye, everybody, and everyone would stand in their little aisle and, Whereas he came to India and everyone was diving at his feet as he was, walking. And it really helped those of us who felt that inwardly to finally go, okay, this makes sense now. Of course he's the Guru. Because he never says, I'm the Guru. Yogananda Ji never said, I'm the Guru. And so, if you're analytical, you're thinking, who's the Guru? Which one is it? And, okay, so Swami is the teacher, but Yogananda's the Guru. That's what was happening. But now, after we come to India and everything, and we know how we feel inside, who cares who calls what the Guru or who the Guru or anything? The Guru is inside, and we have these channels who are just precious to us. So there was a point where I asked Swamiji, because it wasn't a regular thing to touch his feet, I felt I needed to ask his permission. And so I did one day, and I had been touching his feet before, but I was with him alone. And I was going to go, but I wanted to touch his feet before I left. So I said, can I touch your feet? And he said, yes, but no, it's not me. It's not me. And I said, okay. And I didn't quite know exactly what that meant, but I got to touch his feet and go. And I always felt that whenever he leaves his body, I would regret so much if I didn't get to touch his feet as much as possible. That it was absolutely necessary to touch his feet as much as possible. So I'm very grateful that we did come to India. We lived in Delhi for 4 years. We were able to have that experience. But he said, it's not me. And I didn't fully understand what he meant by that when he said that. But when he left his body, it's interesting to think, where do I put my mind now? Because when he was in his body, I was thinking about him. I was thinking about God and Master also, but my mind was with Swamiji. If he had a health issue, my mind was with that. We would do healing prayers with him. We would think about his body. We would think about where he was, what was he doing, what was he writing, and trying, just having a one-pointed view of the Guru. Loving the Guru one-pointedly. But there was a slight thing going on, because when he left his body, I tried to put my mind, his body was gone. It was no longer ill. And so then it required to go up even higher to connect with him, because he was free. And so I realized when he said, "It's not me," he didn't want me to focus on him in the body. He wanted me to focus on this union with God up here. And so now he's not in the body, although we have Nayaswami Jyotish, who is the spiritual successor and a wonderful, great, amazing soul. But we never want to forget that it's not a person in the body, it is this union with God. So, but that one-pointedness is very important, and having the person in the body is very helpful, because they are channels and they are representative of the gurus. And so that's helpful too. As human beings, we need a focus at times, but we don't want to forget that the guru is in here, and that the guru, we need to have this one-pointed concentration on the guru if we want God. So practicing the presence is a way to have that one-pointed focus, keeping our mind on God as much as possible, having a conversation, developing trust. We develop trust through trial and error. Sometimes it's a little scary to let go of our own control and trust God's ultimate power in a situation. Now, I don't mean passively say, "God will handle it, no problem, God will handle it." We can say that, but we mustn't have passive hearts when we say it. You see, we mustn't have low energy when we say it. We can say, "It'll happen," but not passively, because God still needs channels. God still needs us. He comes into us to do His will. And so there's that aspect of, God, make me a channel to do your will and manifest as you want me to. Then there's also, what is trying to happen? This is a phrase we use at Ananda a lot. Suppose we have a certain expectation of a situation, and it doesn't quite go in the way we thought it should. And so rather than trying to force that situation to happen, we take a step back and we say, what's trying to happen here? What is God trying to actually manifest here that I didn't understand before? Sometimes you can just meditate and try and tune into that. Sometimes you just watch and see. Sometimes we're not given the answer. But by saying what is trying to happen here, then we can be open to what God wants in a situation. And then, sometimes we may even feel like we're floating around in the void because we don't really know what God wants, but we're watching and trying to be aware, and then it becomes clear. And then maybe at that point, then we say, okay, I know what you want, give me the power to do it. So we call that time when we're kind of floating around, not certain, the void. Sometimes we just feel like we're floating around in a void without clarity. But in actuality, we're trying to just, during that time, be open to what is trying to happen. So when situations happen in these ways, we can start to develop trust more and more in God. And we can try that out. We can develop that trust. And then ultimately, the trust is not so much in, ultimately, we develop a trust in ourselves and our ability to tune into God. That's one of the final stages of this practicing the presence, is where we gain a confidence So after we have practiced, after we've said what's trying to happen, after we've developed this relationship with God and we have this conversation going on, then one of the final stages is to say, okay, God, I feel such a strong connection with you. I know you're going to come through in this situation. And Swamiji would practice it in so many different ways. One of the ways was with music. He would often wake up with a melody of music or with the words of music in his mind. He knew God wanted to use him as a channel for creating music. It was just there already. And so he would then say, suppose the words came to him that morning, he would say, I need a melody. And then he taught everybody. He said, we all need to practice this. He got to the point where he could say, okay, and the melody is. And then God would come through and give him a melody. Just beautiful, uplifting melody. It would come in 5 minutes. The rest of us might, be at a keyboard or something and go, wah, wah, wah. Nope, that doesn't sound right. Wah, wah, wah. Nope, that's not the right one. Ba, ba, ba. Nope. You see? We try and pluck it out. He would say, and the music is this. And then his hands would go like this, and he'd do that. We can do that. Swamiji would tell us all these stories. And some people would say, why is he telling us so much about what he did? But he always said, I'm not telling you to say, look how impressive I am, look what I can do. I'm telling you, you can all develop that skill and that connection to God where you can do that as well. So this is what practicing the presence of God can do for all of us. And we're just so lucky to have this path where bliss is available, Om is available, the path of Kriya Yoga is available, and also Satsang. I was so happy to see so many people show up today, despite 7 people being gone, because this is where we're really going to develop that spiritual family that supports itself in meditating well. We will gather an energy. When we meditate together, we will gather a bliss together. That will happen. And you may meditate next to someone you don't even know. Suppose for 4 weeks you're sitting next to someone you don't really know very well. You might say hello. But friendships take real time. It's not instant friendship. But when you meditate together, you begin to form understanding. Even without relating personality to personality, there is this understanding that happens. And an understanding of human nature we begin to understand. And we begin to have more compassion for each other. And Swamiji taught a lot about having kindness for each other. So we're very excited about being here. I have to say, when we came to Chennai, we were also saying, what is trying to happen? We didn't know. This is a new culture for us. We were used to the north. Chennai is like a different country. I think Tamil Nadu is a different country. I'm glad India is one and united, just to be honest. But we have the different things. So we didn't know when we came how people would be receptive to what's going on. Yes, 3,000 people showed up for Swamiji. But that could have been because people just like to go to events, Is there a real excitement or a real interest in Kriya Yoga? Is there a real interest in what Ananda has to offer? And I think what we're seeing is that, yes, there really is something trying to happen here. And when we went to the retreat in Pune and had 7 people come, and one thing we can do, we can give people better notice and plan a Pune trip together. So if more people want to go, we can have more of these trips. And the event was so inspiring. I think about 50 people came total. And we had a morning class and an afternoon class. We had yoga sessions. People had a hike around the land. It's a beautiful land. How many acres? I don't know.
33.
30 acres or so of just green. You know, the monsoon is almost over. We had just a little bit of rain periodically. Beautiful green, rolling hills, clear sky, just gorgeous. And fresh air, silence. When we were sleeping, no sounds outside. Maybe every once in a while a peacock, but which you never see. They're just someplace else on the land. So we highly recommend that retreat. Even if we don't go on a group retreat, you can go to their website. They have retreats periodically, or you can just go and stay there on your own. But it reminded us of how Ananda is such a broader family. It's a very big family. It's an international family. And here in Tamil Nadu, we kind of think, okay, we're a nice Chennai family. But when you go there, you realize how connected you feel to these people you don't even know. Because we're all practicing meditation together on the same path. And there's a connection. We have this love of the same guru. And so you meet these people, you go, I know you. When did we meet before? Oh, not this lifetime. Okay. And there's so many of those people. And Dharmaraj and I had been away for 4 years from India. When we left when we left Delhi, we left very suddenly. We were just leaving for vacation. We were going to be away for a month. But my health, I had these parasites for a number of years up in Delhi, and my health didn't bounce back when we went back to America. And I said, I really have to heal before we go back, because I just can't be sick in India anymore. And so we decided, after being away from India for just a couple weeks, we're not returning. And I was so ill, I was bedridden at times. And so Dharmaraj had to go back to India for us. He packed up our bags and left. But it was very sudden, and it was sad, because we had so many friends that we had cultivated there. But a lot of them were in Pune. So when we went to Pune, we got to see so many friends that had also come, and we got to reconnect. And we really feel our life is meant to be here in India. It feels very certain. Swamiji brought us to India originally in Gurgaon and Delhi. And then, of course, the health thing. And then we always thought, I hope we didn't disappoint Swamiji because we didn't stay in India, at that time. I felt in my heart, I hope I didn't disappoint him. And I kind of looked to see if he would ever say, I wish you would go back to India or something. And he never would say that. And so I thought, okay. And then he sent us to LA, and we became the spiritual directors down there. And we were there for a year and a half or something like that. But then, so we thought, okay, maybe we're going to be in LA for the rest of our lives. Not that that would be our favorite place to be, but okay, we'll be in LA. LA has to be exactly opposite of Chennai. You have to search and lift up every stone to find a spiritual something, And so here in Chennai, you trip over spirituality. It's everywhere. It's in the ground. It's in every person. It's in the buildings. It's in all the temples, And so when we walk through Chennai, you just feel the vibration of spirituality everywhere here. So when Swamiji said, come here, we were, what? At first, huh? What are we doing? What? We were there. You asked us to be there. So then he answered the question, I want you in India. And so then we've been here, and we've been so happy to be here, and so happy to be with all of you, and so happy that you are helping us grow this work, and that Ananda Chennai, it will get more and more developed. It's not just a center for teaching classes. It's a center for satsang. It's a center for getting together. It's a center for enjoying each other also. We have to make sure that on the spiritual path we also enjoy. It's not just about discipline and, I didn't meditate today, that kind of a thing. It's also about enjoying. And enjoy, being in joy together. And that joy will spread, and together we will be able to draw more of the spiritual family that's meant to come. We never say, this way is the right way at all, because you can never say who someone else's guru is. But we can ourselves draw our fellow guru bhais here and grow a family. I imagine this center will become too small at some point, and we might have to get more of a bigger space so that we can accommodate everyone. But for now, this is the perfect size, and everything happening here is very perfect.